Pxie's already proven that she's willing to lie and abuse mentally ill people to further this case, as in the case with their star witness. So yeah, I don't expect to get anything. Explain the last court filings. They wanted to hold me in contempt for talking with food shops about the hearing. These people are so fucking desperate. That was the August 21st filings. Oh my God. They're actually shameless. They're shameless. The court entered a scheduling order in this matter. The order says a deadline of October 16, 2025 for the parties' exchange of expert witness information and a deadline of December 16th for the completion of all discovery. On May 5th, the parties exchanged written discovery requests. Meanwhile, plaintiff through counsel attempted to reach an accord with the defendant on a stipulated confidentiality agreement and protective order governing discovery due to the highly sensitive nature of this matter, which involves intimate sexual information and mental health information. A protective order is necessary to protect the privacy interests of both parties and of non-parties whose confidential and sensitive information may be produced. However, counsel for defendant would not agree to any confidentiality protection for any witnesses and only limited protection for plaintiff. On May 23rd, 2025, plaintiff had to file a motion for a protective order governing discovery. Defendant opposed the motion, and plaintiff submitted her reply on June 13th. Okay, this is like kind of true, half true. They we'll get to it in the judge's filing. I'm so happy he notices. These people are crazy, dude. These guys, they sent us a thing to agree to. And I think we agreed to it in email. We agreed to a motion for protecting some discovery info, which is fair. I think it's like, if you're doing discovery, you don't want every single time somebody gets a document to like be publishing this to the press, especially when it's got sexual information. Like, that's fair, right? Like, we would agree to that. But the one that they wanted was so broad that it was basically a gag order. Like, they wanted it so that I couldn't talk about any part of the case ever or anything publicly. And I'm like, well, okay, no, we're not agreeing to that. But we agreed to one that was far more limited in scope, and then they filed it. I think they filed the motion claiming that we agreed to it, but they filed a different motion than what they'd emailed to us. Plaintiff's motion for protective order governing discovery. I think they filed this to ask for an order. They're requesting an order on the motion because the problem is that we're running out of time for discovery and we're running out of time to exchange information to do stuff because the trial date and the end of discovery date is approaching, but we haven't even traded discovery yet because we haven't agreed on what's confidential or what's not confidential. We haven't had any agreement on that. So, but they filed something different with the court than what we had in our email. So the judge, finally, our God judge, our magistrate judge, Edwin G. Torres, our hero, okay? Order on Plaintiff Jane Doe's motion for protective order governing discovery. The matter is before the court on Plaintiff Jane Doe's motion for protective order governing discovery. Did he make the hearing public? No. This is just about stuff to be marked for discovery. This is just documents we're trading. Has nothing to do with the hearing or anything else yet. Hopefully they're getting to that soon, maybe. The matter is before the court on Plaintiff Jane Doe's motion for protective order governing discovery. I don't know how snarky all of this is for what the judge is writing. I can't tell. I just don't know the normal tone for judges or what they put or don't put. But defendant timely responded, thank you, on June 6, 2025, to which plaintiff timely responded. Accordingly, the motion is right for disposition. After careful review of the motion, motion, response, reply, relevant authority, and for the reasons discussed below, plaintiff's motion for protective order governing discovery is granted in part. Background. Plaintiff's motion for protective order governing discovery is evidently before the court due to a breakdown in communications regarding protective order drafts between the parties. The pertinent email chain between the parties' counsel teams reflects this rift. On May 8th, 2025, plaintiff's counsel, so Pxie's team, reached out to request a meet and confer regarding a proposed stipulated confidentiality agreement and protective order. A meet and confer then took place on May 12th, which resulted in a draft of a proposed confidentiality agreement and protective order regarding discovery. The draft was sent by plaintiff's counsel 2 days later on May 14th and was attached to the following email. Andrew, as discussed in our meet and confer on May 12th, attached is a draft of a proposed confidentiality agreement and protective order regarding discovery. This draft is marked confidential, which means it may not be made public or shared on social media by anyone, including specifically your client. Please advise if you'd like to move forward with a joint stipulated agreement. We're open to suggested edits. Thanks. I don't know if they're allowed to just say that. I don't even know if that like sending somebody something and saying you can't share this. I don't know if you're actually allowed to do that, but whatever. These people do all sorts of crazy shit. So roughly 24 hours later, plaintiff's counsel followed up with, following up on this, please let us know defendant's position by noon tomorrow. What is the rush? Hello? By noon tomorrow? Bro, chill. Okay. So it was, they sent this letter to my counsel. Okay. And then 24 hours later, they're like, we need to know by noon tomorrow. I'm like, okay. Then roughly 12 hours later, quote, based on your non-response, we consider our meet and confer efforts to reach a resolution on a joint protective order to be exhausted. Bro, are you okay? 36 hours to respond to Jesus, chill. Then 2 minutes later from defendant's counsel, Joan, it's 10 a.m. I marked up your proposed agreement and will send you our comments when I get out of my meeting. Defendant's counsel did so at approximately 11 a.m. Pacific time on May 16th, 2025. The May 14th draft that plaintiff's counsel sent is 11 pages inclusive of Exhibit A. The May 16 draft returned has relatively few edits, showing that we basically agreed. As the parties note, they are primarily arguing over whether the name or identifying information of non-party witnesses who wish to keep their identity private should be a tenet of the requested protective order. Notably, however, the proposed protective order actually submitted with plaintiff's motion on May 23rd, 2025, is substantively quite different than the draft circulated between the parties earlier in May. At roughly 3 pages, not 14 or whatever, at roughly 3 pages, plaintiff's proposed protective order is comparatively shorter and less specific, if specific at all, as to, for example, what may be designated confidential, how such designation may occur or appear, who has access to such information and under what conditions, the procedure for challenging confidential designations, and what happens in the event of an inadvertent disclosure. Contrast plaintiff's proposed protective order with the actual protective order that was filed. Thus, the parties are now at odds over, among several other things, the terms of a confidentiality agreement and protective order that will govern discovery in this case. They go through a bunch of things here, but basically what the judge ended up granting for the protective order was more or less the draft that we had agreed on, with some specificity to, like, you can't leak discovery information, and I think it's okay for some, like, sexual or mental health material might be for whatever's disclosed from during discovery. Read it, please. It's good content. Have you read this before? All of this? I thought this was kind of boring past the beginning, no? Wasn't the hearing supposed to be automatically made public by now? No, it wasn't. I misread that. We still have to wait for ruling on it. Did the judge ever tell you shouldn't talk about this on stream, or are all of their complaints about this actually completely without merit? You can talk. These are public filings. You can talk. They're public. They're made public. As long as you're not breaking any confidentiality agreements or linking something that you're not supposed to, or revealing like information under seal or whatever, then. So like things that obviously you wouldn't be able to publish that are received at discovery would be intimate images or videos, the legal name or private identifying information of plaintiff Jane Doe, the legal name or private identifying information of any non-party witness whose testimony the court has allowed to be filed under seal, and psychological, medical, or counseling records, private information of an intimate or sexual nature that if disclosed to the public could cause harassment, embarrassment, or retaliation. Like makes sense, right? I think this more or less lines up with the agreement that we had submitted. And then the rest is basically how do you mark things confidential? And then who's allowed access to confidential information? So like expert witnesses or people who are parties to the case, or certain people have information, yeah. But the rest of this is, pretty boilerplate, I think. So does this now allow the witnesses to come forward? No, I don't think this really will affect much at all. Like I said, I seriously doubt they're going to give me anything. I don't think they're going to give me anything in discovery that's going to be incriminating to them, obviously. Lauren is probably, as stupid as she is knowledgeable enough to know what she shouldn't be saying in front of a court. So I'm sure she'll be covering her tracks. And then Pxie's already proven that she's willing to lie and abuse mentally ill people to further this case, as in the case with their star witness. So yeah, I don't expect to get anything. And I don't really have much in terms of trading because there's nothing else to really say about it. So I don't know. We'll see.